everyone. We are so excited to have Tim Blank, Chief Technology Officer of Tower Garden, here with us today. You're going to hear from Tim, and he's going to tell you all about sustainability, Tower Garden as a sustainable brand, as well as where the future of vertical farming is headed. So I hope you guys learn a thing or two from Tim today, and he looks forward to sharing all of his knowledge with all of you. Just to give you some background, I'm Lauren Berry, so it's nice to officially meet you. We're really excited to have you here today.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and start with, if you could tell us a little bit about your interest in aeroponics and kind of how that began.
Well, I mean, finding my way into the space, I was blessed to have a 12-year career at the Walt Disney World Company, managing the hydroponic greenhouses at the land at Epcot, and really getting into the aeroponic space was born out of that experience, working with hydroponic systems from all over the world. It's really believed that aeroponics is the most advanced form of hydroponic growing because we're providing maximum amounts of aeration, oxygen, water, nutrients to the roots of the plants. And that's why NASA chooses to use that for a lot of their projects.
So then how is growing with Tower Garden leading those to live a more sustainable life?
The answer to that, I think, is very simple. Today, we just simply don't know where our food is coming from. It travels thousands of miles from countries outside of the United States. And people today just want to be in control of their food supply, not only know that it's safe and healthy and nutritious, but it doesn't have any harmful pesticide chemicals on it. And I think that's one of the big drivers today. In addition to that, walking out back and harvesting off the Tower Garden behind me, it's super fresh, right? Tower to table and 10 or 20 footsteps. And the fresher your produce is, the more nutrition that it contains.
For sure. And so right now we're kind of seeing within the last year alone that more people are taking an interest in gardening and growing their own food based on, people trying to reduce their food miles and the grocery store situations that we've seen in the last year with empty shelves. So I just wanted to know if you had any thoughts on like the increase of those interested in growing at home.
Yeah, I mean, the increase has been exponential. This experience over the last year has really helped, people understand that they do need to be in control of at least a portion of their food supply, right? And for those of us who were already tower gardening and tower farming during this experience, we were not only producing food for our family, but we were producing food for others.
So then with more people taking an interest in Tower Garden, where do you feel like the future of Tower Garden and the vertical farming industry is headed after, such a monumental year?
Sure. Well, this opportunity over the past year has really shown a spotlight on how fragile our food supply is globally and even in the United States, where we're very spoiled with our interstate and rail transport system, and we kind of produce really so many things we use coast to coast in the United States. But people have become aware of the fragility of that system. And I mean, if you think about it, even from a sustainability perspective, here I am sitting outdoor at a ranch near Orlando, Florida. Okay, and if I was to go to Publix nearby, that food, that lettuce growing behind me on the Tower Garden would be, if I didn't have it on the Tower Garden there, it would have come, more than 2,000 miles away from California, or be flown in thousands of miles from other countries. And the carbon footprint that leaves on planet Earth is simply huge. I mean, if we think about the diesel fuel it takes to run these gigantic tractors that grow, all this food in a horizontal farm, right? And so all that fuel to grow and harvest it, all the carbon footprint that goes into the plastic wrapper and the cardboard box. And then once it leaves the farm, it's got to go in a truck that's chilled, uses a lot of diesel fuel to do that, and to drive those thousands of miles across the US to get to a wholesale distributor in Orlando, which has a chiller or cooler. And then they got to get to a grocery store, and then you got to get in your car and go to the grocery store and get it. And the alternative is I'm in control of my food supply. I am a huge benefit to planet Earth, because instead of that carbon footprint stamp that goes on to most food that we buy, it's almost non-existent when I walk out to my Tower Garden and put it right on my plate for dinner.
And that's amazing. That's what I love about it too. And I'm so glad that more people are, taking an interest in controlling their own food supply, and that it's really been skyrocketed in the last year of more people wanting to do so. So then with that said, there are a lot of different products within the space. How is Tower Garden different than, some of the other products that are within the space?
Yeah,
And I would just love to know your thoughts on that.
that's a great question. Well, when we think about traditional gardening or even container gardening, it requires a lot of bending, weeding, tilling, and waiting, and spraying different chemicals in your garden and things. That all you have to do is go into Home Depot and Lowe's or your local garden center and take a look at what they're selling there, and you pretty much know what people are buying. And so the idea that we've always had at Tower Garden is to make gardening fun and simple, to grow. A Tower Garden home behind me is producing 32 plants on a 24-inch footprint. So it's really about keeping it fun and simple. And when I think about traditional container gardening and some of these other gimmicky hydroponic systems that you see in Google today, they're not made like Tower Garden. They are not a lifetime product. They were not built for decades of use. They could be a plastic container pot or the little earth garden thing that you see at Costco, and within 2-3 years, it's cracking, fading, discoloring, falling apart. And that's just something that to me is not green or sustainable. And so I think those things are what really sets Tower Garden apart. When I get Tower Garden, I'm getting a garden for life, and I can garden in a very small footprint.
Mhm. So then thinking on some of the ways that Tower Garden is sustainable, how much water and space does Tower Garden save compared to other growing methods?
That's an excellent question. Probably one of my favorite questions, because Tower Garden speaks for itself. We are growing, 32 plants on a 24-inch footprint using up to 98% less water. I mean, that grass out there, if I had a garden out there, I'd be losing so much water to evaporation. When the sprinkler goes off, so much water would be covering ground where plants aren't growing. And when they're in the Tower Garden, each little plant port is protected. And we're doing that using up to 90% less land. So that vertical Tower Garden right behind me might require a garden bed that's, 20 by 20 feet out there to grow the same amount of produce. So it's such a huge difference.
So what do you have to say to those that are, a little bit scared to start gardening on their own, and maybe scared that they're going to harm their plants or claim that they haven't had success with gardening in the past?
Well, that's a great question, because the Tower Garden is for you. Part of the reason why you haven't had success in the past is that you're growing in the ground. It's too hot. It's too cold. It's the wrong time of year. You didn't plant your seed deep enough. There's so many things that can go wrong with a conventional garden. And with the Tower Garden, we literally see black thumbs turn green. Now, like a single piece of hair on your head, it's living. It does have to be taken care of. And so for, say, those people who are lazy and don't even want to start their own seedlings, we have dozens of tower farmers all over the United States that not only grow produce for the local community, but they grow beautiful living seedlings about 2 to 3 inches tall, and they ship those seedlings right to your doorstep. So if you get a Tower Garden and you don't even want to start your own seeds, you can order them online. They're shipped to your doorstep. You put them in a Tower Garden like the one behind me, and they're like literally that Tower Garden behind me was transplanted 4 weeks ago, and they are probably a good 10 pounds of produce I can cut off there today.
So we know that traditional gardening involves a lot of, digging and pulling of weeds and scrunching your back over all day for hours on end. So how does Tower Garden kind of combat that for those that may be disabled or elderly?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's unbelievable the difference that it makes. So we have Tower Gardens and assisted living facilities. We have, people who are have to use a wheelchair to get around in life. They can roll up to their Tower Garden and harvest from it, and it's clean. I mean, when you think about even working in the dirt, your produce is dirty. And then when we're growing in the Tower Garden, I personally don't wash or clean anything. It rains here, and the plants are growing vertically up off the ground. So it's been a game changer for the elderly and disabled, and especially for those that grew up gardening and they lost the ability to do that, and to have that ability to do that again is really a beautiful thing to see. And the Tower Garden is making such a difference in that area.
Oh, and I'm sure too with the joy that Tower Garden brings, it's very therapeutic for a lot of people. So I'm sure that it brings joy to those who otherwise would not be able to garden.
Absolutely. And there's a term for that. It's called horticultural therapy.
So we're seeing the growth of indoor vertical farms taking place all over the US and outside the US. Do you have a personal favorite that you love the most?
Well, I have to say I'm a little bit biased, but right here in Orlando, Florida, I'm so proud of probably one of the coolest indoor vertical farms. The Orange County Convention Center is the busiest convention center in the United States, and it's the greenest, literally the greenest convention center in the world. And at the entrance of their convention center, they have two beautiful tower farms growing produce for all the events they do. And they have a little place where they start all the seedlings for those. And the chefs absolutely love it. And not only is it a really cool display, but many companies who are focusing on green and growing specifically choose the Orlando Convention Center because they do have that farm at the entrance. And what I love about it is that it's literally inspiring thousands of people a day as they're walking by the farm of the possibility of how what the future food's going to look like growing up, not out, and that food can actually grow indoors too.
So on that note, do you have any advice to those that are interested in starting to grow with Tower Garden?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're if I can't think of a better opportunity that you can do for your personal health and your personal well-being, for you and your family, and to have a huge contribution to planet Earth. When we see all this stuff going on with pollution and carbon footprint, agriculture is one of the biggest contributors to carbon footprint, and one of the largest contributors to poor health in some cases can be getting contaminated produce and things like that. So I can't think of any better thing, any better hobby to get involved in than growing food at home. And what a better way to do it real fun and simple by growing vertically in the Tower Garden. And I would say just start off with one, pick some of your favorite things you love to go, or pick something you want to do for the year. Do you want to, set a goal? I want to do a smoothie every day. I want to do a salad every day. Whatever your health and wellness thing is, grow things in your Tower Garden that help support that. And you'll be blown away by what a game changer that is for your life.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this with us today and for letting us interview you and talk about the importance of growing at home, controlling your own food supply, sustainability, where the future of the vertical farming industry is headed. It's all exciting stuff, and it's never been more relevant. It's more relevant now than ever.
Happy to do it, and have me back anytime. Enjoyed it.